Do you like fixing things, exploring things, or wandering around aimlessly in the dark? Then how about a nice headlamp for that active or weird lifestyle you lead? Spark has introduced two new headlamps that retail for about $60, called the SG3 and SG5. Since both lights share a lot of common features, I'll touch on the similar ones in this review, and then celebrate the differences, because that's what we do nowadays, right? For starters, they come with the same accessories, or swag as the kids say. Both boxes include the light, a detachable clip, instructions, a headband, a Velcro strap, and a velvety bag. Yep, velvety bags aren't just for fine Canadian liquor anymore. Both lights also employ an identical user interface, or UI, if you like using confusing acronyms that no one else uses. The user interface is a term you use to describe how they turn on and how they access the various brightness levels. Both lights have 5 modes of brightness. While the run times and brightness levels vary slightly between lights, they're both operated identically and have the same number of modes. Start by turning on and off the headlamp. Click the button once, and it comes on in low, or minimum. Click it again, and then it's off. So, turn it back on, and now let's change modes. When you press and hold the button, the light scrolls through the various modes, beginning with minimum, medium 1, medium 2, and finally maximum. When you find a brightness level you like, release the button. Okay, now you're set, and the light will remember the last mode you're on. So when you turn it off and back on again, the light will be always on the last mode you used. If it could also remember your birthday, maybe it could take the place of your jerk family too. If you don't like that level, or suffer from the paradox of choice, just hold the button and it will start over from low, and scroll through the modes until you find one you like again. And finally, there's a hidden mode called Super. It's an output mode that's brighter than all the rest of them. To access it at any time, during any mode, or even while the light is off, just double-click the button. Then click it once to turn it back off. The SG3 and the SG5 employ an electronic switch. Electronic switches use a tiny amount of power to work even when the light is off. I tried measuring this current with my multimeter, but I was not able to get a reading, so it's really low. Anyway, this is sometimes called a parasitic drain, which also sounds like it could be an interesting movie on the Sci-Fi Channel about a possessed kitchen sink. Anyway, it's not a bad thing, it's just a type of switch. Parasitic drains will probably take months and months to completely drain the battery if it's off. If you're going to be leaving it off for an extended period of time, or putting it in storage, it's best to either remove the battery or unscrew the tail cap slightly. Unscrewing the tail cap to keep it from drawing juice is called lockout. Not to be confused with Lockout, a badass space prison movie with the dude from Memento. The tail cap lockout is also useful when carrying it in a pack, when the switch might accidentally be bumped or turned on. Alright, so you've noticed the lights look nearly the same, except for the slightly different proportions. The real difference is the SG5 is a little bit longer, and the battery tube is a little bit thinner than the SG3. There's about a 10mm difference in length. They're both constructed out of an aluminum alloy and anodized with a Type 3 hard coating. A Type 3 coating is extremely resistant to everyday wear and tear. While normal wear and tear is something that means different things to different people, like Christmas, it probably doesn't mean throwing a light at the concrete like a baseball-wise guy. Both have sturdy cooling fins to help with the heat that the LEDs generate, which is never more than warm. And because the tube and the light is actually constructed out of a single piece of aluminum, that basically means that the whole light acts as a heatsink. The lights also have a carbon fiber sleeve which allow a little more flexibility when you're using it as a headlamp. Both use an XML2 emitter that emits a cool white light. Spark actually makes these in a neutral white emitter, but those are not available for review. Lastly, they both use a high quality shot glass lens that can be changed depending on how you like your beam pattern. These lights don't have a typical narrow beam pattern most flashlights generate. The light has a very wide light distribution pattern known as flood that throws the light very wide in front of the person using it. This sort of beam pattern is useful in illuminating things in your immediate area like a project you're working on, or maybe a monster. If you want the sort of light that illuminates objects further away, Spark also makes an optional lens that will help focus and throw the light a little further. Just unscrew the lens and replace it with the reflector, or just buy a regular flashlight. So the lights look similar, have the same types of accessories, do pretty much the same thing, and operate the same. And yes, the NSA knows you're watching a flashlight video on YouTube right now. You're just checking out a cool light, right? You don't have anything to hide. So what sets these two models apart? The biggest difference between the two lights can be boiled down to the types and sizes of batteries they use. That may not seem like that big of a difference on the surface, but it affects several key things such as the dimensions of the battery tube, the run times, the light outputs, and your general attractiveness to other people. Okay, just kidding about that last part. So first let's talk about the SG5. This is the most flexible light of the two in terms of batteries it takes. You can run it off a rechargeable AA battery, an alkaline AA battery, a lithium AA battery, or a 3.7 volt lithium ion battery. Everyone likes options, right? For my runtime tests, I used a rechargeable lithium ion battery known as a Trustfire Flame and a rechargeable AA battery from Sanyo called an Untitled. If you like throwing batteries away, the other two batteries are also great choices. I personally prefer using the 3.6 volt lithium ion battery in the SG5 versus a 1.2 to 1.5 volt AA type battery, mainly due to the slightly longer run times at full brightness and the slightly higher light output in all brightness modes. While it is technically so that the AA rechargeable lasts longer, please note that the light will not maintain a full brightness as long as the lithium ion battery. With the AA, it begins to taper off in brightness earlier, whereas the lithium ion battery maintains an even brightness up until the point it just shuts off. So depending on if you're using a AA or a lithium ion battery, you're making a choice between performance or longevity. This isn't a Cialis ad. Alright, so what about the run times? Well, since my observed and tested run times are a little different than the manufacturer's specs, I'll just post both figures. These runtimes are using a protected 14500 size lithium ion battery, the Trustfire Flame. Super clocks in at 1 hour and 2 minutes until it just turns off. Maximum clocks in at 2 hours and 45 minutes. Medium 2 runs 6 hours and 37 minutes. And medium 1 runs about 39.5 hours. I did not test minimum, but the manufacturer claims it runs at about 10 days with 1 lumen of light output. So how bright is the SG5? Since I have no way of testing the lumen rating without very expensive equipment, I will provide manufacturer specs, which should give you a ballpark estimate, not an exact estimate. And I'll also provide you with some comparison shots from other lights. Note the camera settings on all the still photographs. Super is manufacturer rated at 280 lumens. Maximum 110 lumens. Medium 2, 40 lumens. Medium 1 is rated at 8 lumens. And minimum is rated at 1 lumen. Alright, so some comparison shots. Now we're moving on to the SG3. The SG3 is slightly shorter, but a little fatter than the SG5. It uses a 3.7 volt 16340 rechargeable lithium ion battery, or a non-rechargeable 3 volt CR123 battery. According to manufacturer rated specs, this light will have slightly shorter run times but higher brightness levels than the SG5. Here are a few comparison shots of the 5 modes that illustrate the overall difference in brightness between modes, with manufacturer rated output levels and runtimes. Super is rated at 380 lumens for 0.8 hours. Maximum is rated at 200 lumens for 1.8 hours. Medium 2 is rated at 70 lumens for 6 hours. Medium 1 outputs 10 lumens for 30 hours. And minimum gives you 1 lumen for about 12 days of continuous runtime. Again, these are manufacturer rated specs. Unfortunately, I will not be able to provide you with observed runtimes for the SG3 because I conducted an important test that rendered my light unusable. Spark claims on both lights that they have reverse polarity protection built in, meaning that if you insert the battery the wrong way and try to operate it, you won't damage the light, because it won't turn on. This is actually a thing that can happen to most high-powered lithium-ion LED lights unless the manufacturer offers some sort of mechanical or electrical protection built into the light that keeps you from turning the light on when the battery isn't wrong. Not all lights offer these features, so it's great when the manufacturer helps prevent damage by human error, because we all make mistakes, right? Well, I can't speak for all SG3 or SG5 lights made by Spark, but I can tell you that when I tried to test the built-in reverse polarity protection of the SG3, it stopped operating correctly. It lost 3 of its modes because I put the battery in backwards. Again, this may be limited to the review sample, and while I did not test it on the SG5, I would be very, very careful about putting the battery in correctly to avoid damaging the SG3 or SG5. And FYI, Spark offers a 1-year warranty on this light. I can't say if it covers reverse polarity protection, so you'll just have to contact Spark or contact an authorized US dealer of Spark. Anyway, since the SG3 operated, but at very reduced outputs, I decided to put the light through several endurance tests, including the first, which I put the light in a gallon of water in the freezer for about 7 hours. Now the light is rated to IPX8, so, you can look that up online to find out what IPX8 means, because it's a little vague. The great news is that it operated for about 5 hours until the forming ice pressed the switch. After unthawing it, taking it out, rinsing it off, it worked fine. This test was conducted specifically for those people who put things in the freezer that don't belong there. Yes, I'm talking directly to you. Here is the dropping and throwing test. I throw it against a tree. I throw it as far as I can into a field, which is really not that far. I throw it against a wall and let it hit the concrete. And finally, I'm going to drop it from a second-story window. Now you'll notice at first when I turned the light on it didn't operate, and after smacking it hard on the table a few times, really hard, it seemed to work again. Any final thoughts? Well, the lights are nice and flexible, and they offer a variety of carry options from a headlamp to a clip light. I prefer the clip to be mountable upside down or right side up, but because of the design of the light, this is not possible. It's a preference thing, it really doesn't hinder the basic functionality of the light, but you should note that. The The lights are plenty bright for most headlamp applications and have a very wide useful area of light. Getting that optional reflector lens probably will give the light a little more usefulness. Had I been able to fully test the runtimes of the SG3, I think it would have proven that it lived up to the manufacturer's specifications fairly well, kind of like the SG5. Oh, and one final thing, I've seen some people complain that the SG5 doesn't fit very well in the headband holder. The SG3 does because the battery tube is a little bit thicker. So what you can do is use the headband and the clip in conjunction with one another, and it holds it in place fairly well. So other than the lack of reverse polarity protection in my review sample of the SG3, I like both of the lights very much. Alright, thanks for watching.